Greetings, family, and welcome to the Sajdah Saturday Morning Coffee Talks, where we talk about life, love, and business. And today, we're going to continue our series on the women of the Bible, and we're talking about Lydia of Thyatira today. So go grab you some coffee, roll over if you're still in bed, get up, and we'll be right back to get started.
O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judges, and none can judge against Thee. And he whom Thou befriendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee. And I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings. You're tuned in to the Sajdah Saturday Morning Coffee Talks, where we talk about life, love, and business. Assalamu alaikum, family, and welcome to the Sajdah Saturday Morning Coffee Talks, where we talk about life, love, and business. And y'all know we are in the midst of our series on the women of the Bible. And we're going to continue that today, talking about Lydia of Thyatira. I'm down here in hot Houston. Let me tell y'all something. I love hot weather. So if I say it's hot, it's hot. I actually was going to go out. I'm at this hotel. I was going to go out by the pool. I went out there. It was so hot. I felt like I was melting. I was like, it ain't this hot in Africa. At least in Africa, the mornings are kind of cool, right? But yeah. So anyway, I'm coming to you live from the Power Networking Conference. It's been actually a glorious conference this year. We were all just standing around talking yesterday about the energy of the conference. And it's so funny because I literally met somebody who watched me when I first started video blogging and radio blogging. You all know I love talk radio. I used to listen to talk radio. I think my mom used to listen to talk radio when we were growing up. And then when I was in college, I used to listen to all the talk radio people like Dr. Laura Schlesinger, and I would listen to all of that stuff. And so when I started blogging, I did it on Blog Talk Radio and had the talk radio show. And so a sister came up to me yesterday and she said, I was listening to you way back when it was the Authentic You radio. And I was like, wow. And then she said, no, seriously. And she went and got another sister, and they both blessed me with saying that they have been listening since then. So thank you to each and every one of you. I don't take this for granted. One thing about me, I'm going to be consistent and I'm going to persevere. If you haven't figured anything else out about me by now, you can know that. You all see me persevering with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House Museum, persevering with developing different things. And I've been blessed to develop over $500 million in businesses and projects that I've run. And I got receipts. That's no cap. So anyway, let's get into Lydia. I was actually thinking this morning, I said, maybe I should stop calling it Sajdah Saturday Morning Coffee Talks and just call it Sajdah Coffee Talks. I don't know. Something about that don't flow. Reason being is because I'm thinking of adding another day. Maybe a day where we just talk about certain subjects. I don't know. I'm toying around with the idea. And maybe on the other day we have like guests over for coffee or something. Let me know what y'all think. Anyway, so listen, I've been doing this Women of the Bible series because I'm a strong believer in connecting the dots between where we are today to those of us that preceded us in history, so that we link on to that energetic legacy and begin some escapism or an escape process from the conditions that we're fighting against today. See, there's no escaping this without divine intervention. And I'm one of those people that I'm all about spirituality and business being a way of life. And so I think there's no better place than the Bible to go to uplift women in business on a spiritual level. A lot of it's hidden and a lot of it they don't talk about, but a lot of the movement was financed and conducted by women in the marketplace and women in business who were all but written out of history. And so even as our brothers who listen, shout out to Brother Lamont, who is a consistent listener. Walaikum salam. Walaikum salam, Sister Alita. You can get something from this too, because a lot of these women, you can even look at them as prototype. So we can look at them as individual women who we're motivated by, or we can look at them as a prototype. Somebody got to finance the movement. Somebody got to get out here and be good in business and be good in trade and commerce and bring the money back home to the family so that we can support. So when you see Jesus and Peter and all of them moving around and teaching, there were women who took them into their homes and said, hey, I know you're tired. I know you need some water. Come and stay here. And I'm talking about women of means, because you couldn't afford to do that if you didn't have means. So we're going to talk about Lydia today. Y'all know I just love these spiritual talks. So Lydia of Thyatira, that's Thyatira. Lydia is said to be the first person converted as a believer after the resurrection and the first to introduce it into her household. We're going to talk about that. She was a successful businesswoman, and she was pivotal to the spread of the name of Jesus. Please excuse my voice, you guys. I'm a little like stuffy and everything. I think it's because it's so hot down here. The air conditioner has to be on full blast to get rid of the humidity, and that's just not a combination that's working well for me this weekend. Okay, so let me go here. Thyatira is now Western Turkey. So think about Western Turkey. Thyatira in the Bible is now Western Turkey. It went on to become the home to one of the 7 churches in the book of Revelations. Did y'all know that? It was an affluent municipality in the northern part of Lydia of the Roman region of Asia. So the sister is also known as Saint Lydia, but the area where she lived was also Lydia. So according to the Bible, and this is the book of Acts, okay, chapter 16. I just want to read this to you. Let me pull my notes up here. Let's read Acts chapter 16. Paul came to Derbe and then to Lystra, where a disciple named Timothy lived, whose mother was Jewish and a believer, but whose father was a Greek. The believers of Lystra and Iconium spoke well of him. Paul wanted to take him along on the journey, so he circumcised him because of the Jews who lived in that area, for they all knew his father was a Greek. As they traveled from town to town, they delivered the decisions reached by the apostles and elders in Jerusalem for the people to obey. So the churches were strengthened in the faith and grew daily in numbers. Okay. Now, Paul and his companions, they traveled throughout the region of Phrygia and Galatia, having been kept by the Holy Spirit from preaching the word in the province of Asia. So these are people moving through the land, and the Holy Spirit, or the energy or the Spirit of God, is telling them where to go, what to do, where to stay from. When they came to the border of Mysia, they tried to enter Bithynia, but the Spirit of Jesus would not allow them to. So they passed up Mysia and went down to Troas. Okay. During the night, Paul had a vision of a man of Macedonia standing and begging him, saying, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." Now, after Paul has seen the vision, we got ready. They said they got ready at once for Macedonia, concluding that God had called them to preach the gospel to them. From Troas, they went out to sea and sailed straight to Samothrace. And the next day they went on to Neapolis. From there, they traveled to Philippi, a Roman colony and the leading city of that district of Macedonia, and stayed there for several days. I'm giving you this picture because I want you to understand how these people were moving around. And so they had to move around and rely on business people in the community to help them. Now, on the Sabbath, they went outside the city gate to the river, where they expected to find a place to pray. They sat down and began to speak to the women who had gathered there. And one of the women who was listening was a woman from the city of Thyatira named Lydia. She was a dealer in purple cloth. She was a worshiper of God, and the Lord opened her heart to respond to Paul's message. When she and the members of her household were baptized, she invited us, according to Paul, into her home. And she said, "If you consider me a believer in the Lord, come and stay at my house." And she persuaded us. Let's break that down. Now, I can only assume here that they looked tired, or perhaps it was known that they had traveled very far, that word had got out. The woman referred to here as Lydia was likely the boss of the women who were down there at the river resting. Y'all get that? Talk to me in the chat. Lydia was a dealer of purple cloth and likely had workers to help her mix and prepare the fruits and herbs that created the dye that she used to create the purple cloth. This was likely quite an undertaking and possibly rare. See, purple cloth back then was royalty. She may have had a shop at a very popular marketplace. If you know anything about purple cloth in the ancient world, it was like designer or high-level cloth. It was like owning, Gucci or Armani cloth, if you will. And the color purple represented royalty or nobility, luxury, power, and ambition. Purple also had spiritual significance and was used to heal mental disorders and helping one become one with the spirit. So as a dealer of this very special kind of cloth, it likely meant that she was a woman of great means. Purple is referenced in Proverbs when the virtuous woman adorned herself in silk. Some of you all may know that, and in purple. So I'm going to stop right there, let y'all just kind of catch up. I see Aletha got the purple hearts. Good morning, Mom. Yes. So think about this. Think about this woman, and her staff are down by the river taking a rest because they've been working. And then here comes Paul and the rest of the disciples, and she listens to them teach and talk about Jesus. And she invites them to her home, and she convinces her household to be baptized. See, back then, women didn't have a lot of quote unquote power like that. So in order for her to have a house big enough to hold the entourage and then to influence the house to become baptized says a lot about her level of influence. See, so many times, and I talk about this all the time, in business, we're taught in modern day business that religion and spirituality is separate from our business. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us that business is the activity of life. And so what does that mean? That means that as we're moving through life, we will need a means in which to take care of ourselves. But it doesn't have to be this big, lofty, spooky thing with all these barriers and all this craziness that we go through when they just literally strip from us. Think about this. I just want y'all to think about it this way. Here we are as people who understand that business is a way of life, who understand that movements and faith is propagated through business, who understand the importance of developing marketplaces. You have these great women with means that we've talked about in this series, from Mary Magdalene to Shira to Hogla, with land rights and all of that kind of stuff. And so business and trade and commerce was a part of our DNA. And then we get kidnapped from our homeland. We get brought here. We go through a serious abusive mental treatment, physically and mentally abusive. And not only are our names stripped away from us, not only is who we are stripped from us, but the science of business and medicine and math that we invented is stripped from us. And then we're told that in order for us to get back into business and to own businesses and do for self, we got to jump over all kind of hoops. We got to literally relearn how to be business people because it's just been stripped from us. It's been taken from us. Think about that. So not only your name, you don't know who you are. You don't know where you came from. You don't know how you got here. So it's like somebody hit you in the head and you woke up and was like, what? But you see, series like this are so important because that strand of DNA, that energetic DNA, is still in us and with us to this day. We just got to turn the spark up and reignite the fire. I talked about this a little bit last week. There's a book that we're going to do some study on. It is, I forget the name of the book. I don't have it. Y'all know I'm not in my office. But the book talks about how during Reconstruction, so post the quote unquote abolition of slavery, many Black people went back to the very same professions that their family and ancestors were in 400 years prior to them being kidnapped. I find that so fascinating. That means that it's something in your DNA, something about you, something about who you are that tells you what you should be doing. So what's that one thing that you just can't walk away from? Here we're talking about Lydia, who was probably weaving cloths. She dyed fabrics. And so that's a whole science. You damn near got to be a scientist back in those days. There's no computer to show you what to mix together. She had to know, her and her team, how to put the fruits and herbs together and soak it in the purple dye, dry it out so that they could sell it. Very, very powerful. From that commerce, she had a house big enough and obviously was of influence, because she then told the disciples, if you consider me a believer, because more than likely they didn't trust people and they weren't about to go stay with somebody who was a disbeliever or somebody who was an enemy that was trying to kill them. She said, if you consider me to be a believer, come and stay in my house. And so she took them into her home. They trusted her. Paul said, she persuaded us. So she persuaded them to come to her home. She likely fed them and took care of them, gave them a place to lay their head down. And they probably continued to teach throughout dinner, throughout the evening, throughout the night. They're teaching so much so that her entire household was baptized. I want you all to think about this, because when we're sitting up trying to figure out how we're going to open our business, how we're going to support one another, we have this westernized selfishness where we're like, I ain't got time. I ain't got time to be supporting nobody. I ain't got time to be helping nobody. I don't trust nobody. Can't nobody come over my house. This woman and her workers down at the river see Paul and the disciples coming. Didn't nobody call her and tell her. There weren't no phones. Didn't nobody call her and tell her, Paul and them coming down the road. You're going to be able to take them in. But no. She saw them down there and she heard the word. So that meant her discernment was on point, because they could have came in her household and robbed her. But her discernment was on point. That's what I want us to see. Here's another interesting point from that. I find it interesting because how cloth is often used in spiritual context with people who are being purified or resurrected. Cloth being a symbol. Let me know in the chat if any of you all know the history of cloth and why cloth is being used, because I don't know it. Why cloth is often used as a symbol, a spiritual symbol of people who are being purified and resurrected. Silk, for example, is the high frequency cloth that Master Farad Muhammad used to address and teach his first converts. He said to them, I came bringing you silks from your brothers in the East. It is said that silk threads are able to absorb 3 times more energy than any other threads. According to New Scientist magazine, it is metal rich. Silk threads are good conductors of electricity. This is so powerful. In Buddhism, silk is said to provide a link between this life and rebirth. So the selling of silks is an interesting symbolism that came to my spirit when we were talking about Lydia selling cloths. It's likely that many of us in Detroit didn't have money for silks. And as you know, we likely didn't even know we had people in the East. We didn't know. Nor did we even know what silk was in many cases. And then there is the Silk Road. How many people heard of the Silk Road? It's not an actual road or a single route. It was actually a network of routes that was used for more than 1,500 years that contributed to the exchange of goods and ideas among diverse cultures. The Silk Road extended approximately 4,000 miles. I'll let y'all look that up. But religion, ideas, and goods spread along the Silk Road. And I don't know why Master Farah Muhammad chose silk fabric to attract us to the knowledge of self, but I know it means something. It's something about cloth. Anybody got any ideas? Why cloth? That cloth is something about it. We're going to research that, team. All right, so back to Lydia. We'll go back to her again. She obviously had a house that was large enough to host the entire entourage, which speaks to her being a woman of means. There was 12 disciples. I don't know if all 12 of them were there at the time, but likely there was an entourage. So if they came, they probably had all kind of stuff with them. They got bags. So she had to have a big space, right? Historically, women of means often have large homes and were used for business, worshiping, and hosting guests. You see this even with women like Madam C.J. Walker, who was known to host lavish dinners. And even the great Booker T. Washington is said to have dined in her home. You got my virtual mentor, Annie Malone, who was actually the first self-made female millionaire in America and who trained Madam C.J. Walker. She was slanderously depicted in the recent movie on Madam C.J. Walker on Netflix, but she was quite the philanthropist. She entertained and financed the upliftment of Black people, primarily in Chicago and in St. Louis. Then you have people like Aretha Franklin. She is said to often host holiday parties where influencers met and dined and were entertained. Even Oprah Winfrey, who we see her Legends Ball and other events hosted at her home. These gatherings are the makings of deals and relationships that shape the world. Lydia was that type of woman. Did you all know that the first three people who were converts in the area of the church of Philippi were women? There was Lydia, who we're talking about today. Then in chapter 4, it talks about two other women who were leading the congregation. One was called Euodia, and the other one is Syntyche. So the book of Acts records, when she and the members of her household were baptized, she invited us to her home. This is Paul talking. If you consider me a believer, she said in the Lord, come and stay at my house. And Paul said she persuaded us. So that meant she was in charge of her house. That meant she was running her house. It said a lot about her as a woman. And she was one of the first converts that they met on the road, or those that they converted on the road. That's important too, right? I was talking the other day where I remember when I first really became conscious of my spiritual journey and coming into the nation. Even through that process, I met so many different people. I used to go to Pan-Africanist events and apartheid events in college, and we'd wear all these buttons, free Nelson Mandela. But everybody back then was in the resurrection business. And it's really like today, we are no longer in the resurrection business. So we're no longer trying to save people or help people. It's all about something wrong with them. Let me diagnose them. Let me put a label on them, slap a label on them, and figure out how to do. The only time we really get nowadays in this pop culture into people where we really want to help and support them is if we think they got money, or we think we can get some money up out of them, whether they got it or we can use them for money. That's the only time. But when we see somebody who's downtrodden, I think we should work to be like Lydia and say, what can I do to help you? What can I do to support you? How can I be better? Now, yeah, today it's a little dangerous to take people up into your home, but you can be of support. You all know that I will drive extra exits and go above and beyond to support somebody who is doing good in our community and trying to help others in our community. I pray for each and every one of you who watch my podcast. I wake up in the morning and I say a prayer, not only of gratitude just for waking up and for my feet hitting the ground and for feeling those sheets on my body, but I say a prayer for my family. I say a prayer for you all who watch and who listen. And I thank Allah for each and every one of you. And this channel, which I hope you all are liking and subscribing to, is like me bringing you into my virtual home. And you see me trying to figure out another day. And I'm always figuring out how we can bring more people into this virtual home. More people that we can help. More people whose central nervous system we can relax by introducing them to something that is greater than themselves. See, I'm going to say it again. Ain't no way up out of this without divine intervention. We can have all the businesses we want. We can get all the money we want. We can do all that we want, but without divine intervention, it ain't happening. That's real talk. It's not happening. So we have to get to the point where we are loving on one another, supporting our culture. And let me say this. Our self-hatred is so powerful and it's so bad that many of us don't want to be Black. We don't want to be like the next person. We don't look at another Black sister or another Black brother and say, man, you're beautiful. I love you. Not in mass numbers. There's some of us who are conscious that do that. But we're so busy when we go into corporate and when we go in certain situations trying to strip ourselves of our Blackness. So much so that we don't want nothing to do with nothing Black. And then you got people making billions of dollars off of what? Off of our Blackness. We continue to be exploited day in and day out. It is our culture that runs the world. You all heard me talk about this. There was a show I did on marketing themes and hooks. And there's always been a way in which when you're writing a marketing or an advertising campaign where you create the theme first. I learned this in creative writing in high school, where when you're writing, you write a thesis, little short sentence that's a thesis. And we were taught how to structure our document with an introduction and each paragraph kind of having like a little thesis or each section. But you know, rappers, when they write raps, if you've ever been around any rappers in the studio, they usually write the hook first, right? They figure out whatever that hook is going to be. And if they know if they got a hot hook, they just have to add in the verses to it, but it's the hook that's going to make it go. And do you know that in marketing now, they call creating that mission statement or that thesis the hook? There's a book out called Hook Point. They said, what's the hook? They took that from us. And there's so many principles in the corporate world that have been taken from us, from our lifestyle, from our art, from our crafts. And It's okay if other people see us as beautiful and admirable, but it's not okay to exploit us. But it's an even worse sin for us to allow ourselves to continue to be exploited. You to hear Paul saying that when he met Lydia, he went over to how she was dyeing and looked at how she was dyeing the fabric and looked at how she was putting the fruits and vegetables in the trough and making the dye, and that he went and stole a recipe and then took it down the road to some other city. You didn't hear that. You hear him talking about what her profession was and honoring her for her profession, going in her home and teaching her. He knew that she would come across a lot of people. See, a lot of faith and ways of life are transcended through business. This is why hip hop is the number one genre of music around the world. It is through business because advertisers use it. You hear it on television when you're watching. They use in our songs, our music. You can go, I told you the story about being in Korea and how in Korea, we went to a dance festival. And if you know, I'll tell the story real quick because some of you all didn't hear it. If you know anything about the Koreans, they're very ceremonial. And they have these beautiful ceremonies, and there was all this dancing, and it was absolutely beautiful. And so we're sitting on the side, and they kind of were welcoming our delegation, and they wanted us to go to this festival. And the festival had people from around the world. Excuse me. I actually loved it. Excuse me. I love the festival because I love dance and music and arts and culture. So they had Swedish dancers, and they had Norwegian dancers, and they had just dancers from all around the world. Spain. It was beautiful, beautiful costumes. And then here come the hip hop people, and they were Korean, and they had on these orange jumpsuits. And on the back of the jumpsuits, it had DOJ. And they was dancing hip hop, you know, they had their groove going. And so I'm looking around. There's a few of us that were black in the delegation. I'm like, does anybody see this? They are so into our culture and mimicking our culture that they are wearing DOJ jumpsuits in the street and dancing to hip hop music with hip hop moves, footwork, everything with DOJ jumpsuits. Think about that. Think about how powerful you are. Another time we were in China, and I want to say it was Lil Wayne who had just left. And I found it so incredibly powerful because a lot of people in our delegation, they were older. I love me some Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne is actually one of my favorite rappers. Some of my friends, when he was getting sick and having those epilepsy events, they was calling me like, girl, don't die. Lil Wayne is sick. But a lot of the people in the delegation were talking about how unattractive he was. They talked about his hair and the tattoos on his face and how he talked and all of that. And I'm watching Beijing, China with Lil Wayne posters because he was coming there to perform. They didn't care nothing about how unattractive we thought he was. They had turned it out for Lil Wayne. And I say this not as a way of downing Lil Wayne, but if Lil Wayne, who a lot of us think is unattractive, with tattoos all over his face, can go to Beijing, China, and probably draw a bigger crowd than Michael Jackson. I'm not kidding. You got people like that can travel around this world and draw huge crowds. It's how powerful our culture is. You see, but part of the science of business. See, when we hear that they said we have to relearn the science of business, we thought that it was an accounting technique. We thought it was negotiations, trade, commerce. Most of us know all of that. We thought it was how to invest your money, and there's techniques that we could learn. But it's about the monetization and the ownership of culture. I'm going to say it again. The ownership and the monetization of our culture is the science of business that we need to learn moving into the 21st century. If we don't get that, see, when you don't have ownership of your culture, and at the same time, you're being melted into a pot to the point where your culture is being stripped of you and it's no more, then you as a people will be no more. And I'm going to tell you something. This Western world can't live without our culture. This Western world is built on and hinges on the culture of Black people, and it's been that way since we were kidnapped and brought over here, whether it was our culture that invented. We have some of the greatest inventors in the world. Modern day Western world would not be the same without the great inventions of Black men and women who were the laborers, the enslaved people who had no choice, who had to invent better ways to do things and quicker ways to do things because of the demands that was on them and on their bodies. So there was a whole world that was built on the backs of Black people. And then culture came up out of that. We was the one in the house entertaining, singing, dancing, comedian. We became the preachers. We're singing in the field. It's our culture. We went through Reconstruction and Jim Crow. What is the constant through line that this world has made money off of since we came has been us and our culture. So there is no Western world without the culture of Black people. And I know it's hard for y'all to see because we don't understand the science of business. But the science of this business in this world is Black culture. And let me tell y'all something. Our culture is not ratchetness. I'm going to say that again. Y'all can type that in the chat. Our culture is not ratchetness. We are a divinely gifted people who have survived some of the worst treatment and conditions in history for the longest period of time. And we're still here. And out of that pain, out of that culture, we have created music, art, dance, and a way of doing things and seeing things that the entire world hinges on. That's the science of business. So we have to preserve our culture. This is why these museums, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House Museum, the Coalition of Black House Museum, these museums are important. I'm not talking about a museum that you put up and let somebody else tell our story. I'm talking about museums that truly reflect us, because our culture is so rich. It's going to be the fertile land that we're going to go back into to create our plans for the future. I hope y'all hearing me today, because I'm giving you some game. Our culture, Black culture, we must own it. We must monetize it. That's going to be our key to the future. You can guarantee that just about every plan that is designed for the future of the Western world hinges on predatory dominance and the use of Black people, whether it's our cells, whether it's our organs, whether it's our voices, whether it's our singing, whether it's our dancing, whether it's our thinking, whether it's the way in which we have survived and thrived over the past 400 plus years with somebody's foot literally on our neck. That's to be studied. And when we learn to own that is when we will become powerful people. How does it start? Preserving our history, supporting the preservation of our history, telling our stories, writing our stories down, not giving up the rights to things that are authentically us. All right, y'all. So today I'm at the Power Networking Conference. I am on a panel today at 3:45. We're going to be talking about wealth in the 21st century. Our culture is not ratchetness. So I thank you all for listening to me this morning. I didn't mean to get so much on the soapbox, but Lydia did it because I could feel the spirit of a woman like Lydia. And that's what this is about. We gotta connect the dots to who we are and who we were before we were kidnapped. See, if we can connect that dot, then there's no stopping us, because now we're hooking into the richness of our DNA that takes us all the way back to the original God himself. So, all right, y'all, don't chip and dip me this morning. I think I gave y'all some good information. You see the Cash App going across the bottom. It's $Mo today. Somebody type that in the chat for me, $MOETODAY. Make a donation to the movement, to the cause. Support the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House Museum. Just go to sajdahhousedonations.com. I am still working my backside off to get this done. And we're gonna get it done, inshallah, this year. It's so important that we own and monetize our history. And we want to walk the walk and talk the talk. All right. Okay. Peace and blessings, family. Thank you, Brother Lamont, for putting that in the chat. Go out there, Cash App us, support us. Go to sajdahhousedonations.com if you like to give with your credit card, and you can support the completion of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad House. Inshallah, we'll represent well today on the stage, and we're just going to keep going. But remember what I said. I want you to twirl that around in your mind, because as long as you try to be safe and try to just be a dark-skinned white person, your identity is being taken from you. Your ability to monetize on another level is taken from you. And you are on the road to becoming blind, deaf, and dumb if you ain't already that. Because some of us get woke and get conscious, and we get a little education, and we want to go into the corporate world. And then all of a sudden we start stripping ourselves of our culture, because we don't want nobody to know that we're this person or that person. We don't want nobody to know what church we go to. We don't want nobody to know that we Muhammad. We don't want nobody to know nothing about Black culture, that we just went to the Pan-Africanist rally. We don't want none of that. Brother Abel said, can we view you on the panel? I don't think so. I may see if I can go live with my phone, which I may be able to do from Instagram, but I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'm going to, but I don't think so, because it's a conference and people had to pay for it. But I saw yesterday when Tavis Smiley was speaking, he and Malik Yoba were on stage with Dr. Frazier. I saw a lot of people going live with their phones. So let me see if I can figure that out. Okay. I'll find somebody today. I'm going to get down there early and see if we can find somebody. So if not, maybe we can tape it. But anyway, family, peace and blessings. I'm going to get off of it. I'll talk to you all soon. Make sure you support and tune in Thursday And make sure you like and subscribe to the page. That way you'll get hit that little notification buttons. You'll get a notification when we're going live next. So Thursday, we have the Mo Today series on Black Muslim businesses. And inshallah, we'll be back here next Saturday with our Women of the Bible series. All right. Peace and blessings, family. Love you all. Thank you. Get my little video together here. I'm on my laptop, and it's so hard to navigate. The desktop is easy. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'll see y'all later. Greetings, conscious entrepreneurs. Add the Mind of an Entrepreneur show to your Roku TV lineup and catch up on past episodes of all your favorite Mo Today shows.